Welcome back to the City Council meeting. We've closed public comment on item 10.4 and bringing it back to council for discussion. Start us off here.
I can start.
Yeah, please, Vice Mayor Rinn.
So generally, I think what we discussed in the commonality is there's general consensus on map 5, the 5 districting as the default come November election 2024. That is the map. I think where we wanted to have a discussion was, does the city of Pleasant Hill want to have a directly elected mayor? And so with that, that would produce a 4 district map. So the idea is, what does that look like for a directly elected mayor? And I previously talked about kind of what districting means. And I know there's a lot of confusion and different information out there, but currently within that large format, representation from Pleasant Hill is Pleasant Hill voters every 2 years would either get to vote for 3 people or vote for 2 people. And generally elected, so all 5, in theory, would be representative of the city of Pleasant Hill because everybody's had an opportunity to vote for all 5. And then with that practice has been a rotation amongst those 5 elected people by the whole city of Pleasant Hill. And with that, as a voter, you feel like you've had representation because you had an opportunity to vote for all 5 of the council members, and knowing that whether 1 or 2 of your candidates gone in or none of your candidates or all of your candidates, you know that that person was something you had an opportunity to vote for as mayor of your city. And that's the rotation. A lot of people are trying to make the analogies, well, you're currently rotating, so just rotate again. But it's different because when you go into districting, you're 1 of 5. You're only 20% representation of the 100% voting population. When you vote, so like Zach is, and potentially in the 5 district would be my representative. So I had an opportunity to vote for him in 22 to get on council. And my next chance would be 26. And who knows where he would be in the mayor cycle, but there would be 4 other people potentially that I never had a chance to vote for or have any say or participation. And they would be rotating in as mayor. So that's why I just wanted to have the discussion and put it out to the people of Pleasant Hill is, do they want to have a say, not only just with 1 person in their district, but to have a second say as who their mayor can be to represent them through the city. As far as the 4 district map, that can all be worked out, like which ones are drawn and things like that, in my personal opinion. But the idea was just, what do the people of Pleasant Hill want to do? Do they want to have a second vote for a mayor to represent them besides just a person in their district? And so that's the theory behind it. And that's just my 2 cents of my perspective where I come. But I think we're all in consensus about a 5 district as far as the process for November. But if the city of Pleasant Hill, 50% or more, want to have a directly elected mayor, then that would change things. But if they choose not to, and are in the majority that we've heard speak before us, then the default would automatically take place and it'd be a 5 district map. And I think that is my assumption. Am I correct, city attorney? Okay. Well, so that's just my 2 cents on that. But and the thought behind of wanting to have a second person to help represent me and have a say in who that person is, and not just having 20% representation up here. So that's my thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody, Councilmember Vinson?
Sure. I agree. If we go with the 5 district map, I think obviously map number 5 is the one to use. I've got some concerns going forward with the ballot measure and going to the 4 districts though. One is, what would the term of office be? I've heard 2 years mentioned, which I don't think works because it's time consuming and expensive to run for the mayor every 2 years. So the option there is 4 years. What are the actual duties of the mayor? Right now, I think it's more ceremonial, conducting our meetings, representing the city at various functions. The members of the community that I've heard support the 4 district map really haven't pointed out which map they would prefer. I think they like the idea of the mayor, but there's really not a map out there that they're pointing to that would satisfy their needs. It would be a little bit unusual for this type of an election because it's not clear to me who would be promoting it or arguing in favor or against. I know some of the people here would have an opinion, but it's not the typical measure where you have a committee that's really out there supporting it. It's more just go out there and vote. I've talked to a number of people in the city, and when you talk about having a ballot measure and maybe two ballot measures, it's very confusing. I've been to all the meetings but one, and I think I know what I'm talking about when I talk to folks, but it's very, very challenging to explain it to them. We actually now we do district elections for the County Board of Education, for our supervisors, the water district. So it's not something that's entirely new. I think waiting till March, it may not be fair to some of the potential candidates because you like to plan early for your campaign. If it's not till March, you may not know what district you're going to be representing. So whether it's one of the small 5 districts or a larger one of the 4 districts or even running for mayor, that could make it even more challenging to do the fundraising. So personally at this point, because of the time limitations we've heard about, I think it would be a real challenge to go with the 4 district map. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shess.
Thank you, Mayor. It's I think it's pretty clear that we all believe in district that the map 5 as a way of going for a 5 district is kind of the way we're leaning. I think, I'm a little, it's interesting. It's like, I hear we want independent commissions, but then don't put it to the voters to vote. And to me, that's not congruent. That being said, I think there's not a map 4 there that I like in particular. And I'm sure obviously you all feel the same way. So I like the idea, if we can create a map that checks all the boxes of a 5 district map, but it gives the flexibility of having an at-large mayor. I think it's worth considering, and I think it's worth. But I don't. But what I'm concerned about is the time factor that we're under right now, and I think it's worth it. When we first started this process, we had that first district, that 5 district map. Everyone didn't like it. And I said weeks ago, this is an iterative process, right? And so I believe that if we had a little more time, I think we could work together and come up with a 4 district map that would be contiguous, that could, provide the minority representation that we all want. But I just don't know if we have that time yet. I just don't think. I like it in principle. I like that idea, but again, I'm a little leery. Councilmember Vinson made a really interesting point there about having not a candidate who's probably looking to maybe run in 2024, not knowing what district. I mean, that's a really interesting point that I hadn't even thought about. So, I mean, I like the idea of giving residents a choice. The people I've heard tonight say that's too complicated. No, it's not. We have statewide ballot measures that we deal with every year. And the people I have been hearing during this whole process are very intelligent, very thoughtful people. They could handle this. You could handle that. I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned about the time that we have to get this done. And so I like the notion of it. I hope that maybe eventually we could look at this. But right now, I don't know if we really have that time.
Thank you. Councilmember Noack.
Well, I think I made, most of you probably heard all my comments the last time we spoke on this, and I'm still of the same vein. I think we tried very hard to get information out to the public, and we didn't get much response. Personally, I think people just think, well, the city's pretty well run. I'm not going to get in the middle of this, and that's fine. But we have, when there's an issue that came up on the housing element, we had this room full, the community room full, we had people online. It was, when people really are concerned about an issue, they show up in the hundreds, right? And that hasn't been the case here for, I don't know what reason, honestly. I think Councilmember Shess pointed out an interesting point. We had a lot of push to get public involvement. And then when we say we're going to take it to the public, then there's a pushback. So that's kind of strange to me. There are people questioning the integrity of this body in putting these maps together. And I've indicated my concern about that. We have the maps that were drawn by the demographers were done solely to get the highest percentage minority in a district. And that's what those maps did. You cannot find a map submitted by anybody that has a higher percentage minority that is legally defensible than those two maps. That's the only reason they were drawn that way. No gerrymandering. Yeah, it's weird. There was a weird line. But honestly, whether that line was there or whether it was on the other side, Mayor Flaherty couldn't run again, no matter what. Whatever line that was, he's not going to be able to run again, period. So it was a matter of whether Matt couldn't run again or Alan couldn't run again. But that line didn't impact him at all, or Councilmember Shess. So I think people need to take a step back. And I think there's some comments, there's some confusion out there that if we're liked, we can get elected again. That's not accurate. Next year, if we go with map 5, next year, Councilmember Vinson, Mayor Flaherty, and Councilmember Rinn cannot run because they are in the district of Councilmember Shess, who just won in November. They cannot run again. They can run against Councilmember Shess 2 years later in 2026. So there's confusion about somehow council members, if they've done a good job, can run again. They can't. 3 of them cannot run next year, period. And no matter what map we had, either 2 or 3 or even at times 4 of us could not run again. So there was no gerrymandered map that saved this council, period. None, not a single one. And so accusations about that are just false. Be that as it may, I would like to get this behind us. I think map 5 honors the communities that we have. It does what we need to do from a minority perspective. And I'd be happy to make a motion to just go with map 5, period, and not have the option of doing a ballot measure. I do think they're confusing. I think it's difficult. While I'd love to see the people of this city be able to have 2 representatives on this council rather than 1, I think the measure will be difficult, and I think it will be very confusing to the public if you haven't sat through so many of these meetings. So that's my position, and I'd be happy to make a motion to just give direction, because I can't, the ordinance is not written that way. So I would be happy to just recommend that we move just to the map 5 and call it a day.
I agree.
Thank you. I'll just share my comments too. It's an interesting position, sitting here in the center, just by luck this year, really, happenstance. And I agree with all of you, really. So it's an interesting issue that we all have, I think, similar sentiments. I think it's important just to step back and refresh ourselves how we got here. When the issue of district elections was first brought to the council's attention by letter back, I think in January, February, when we had our first public meeting, the council quickly coalesced behind the idea of district elections. There's never been resistance to it. We all see the benefit of it and completely support it. The map process, as Councilmember Shess said, was an iterative process. It was a learning process. But as early as the Saturday meeting at the community room, I think a majority of the council expressed interest in map 5. So there's never really been an issue since the maps were created and we had an opportunity to discuss them and get a better understanding of which criteria were important. I think initially I thought that the most important factor was to increase the representation of the members of the city that had not been properly represented up to this point, and learned that that's not the primary issue. The primary issue is the retention of the neighborhoods without regard to how it affects the minority coalition. and was even surprised to see that some of the proponents of district elections were advocating maps that gave less representation to the minority coalition, minority majority, than the maps of the demographer. The demographer maps clearly were wonky. They made no sense to anybody who had any real knowledge, boots on the ground knowledge of the city of Pleasant Hill and its boundaries and its neighborhoods. And it's also been a lesson to me about how you can say something off the cuff and it takes on a life of its own. I did say that map 1 looked good to me, but in reading it and hearing how people reacted to it, I clearly did not express myself well or properly. What map 1 in the 4-district side looked good to me, again, was looking at the representation it provided to the various members of the population here. The boundaries make no sense. And that's certainly nothing I would advocate. And I do appreciate some of the public comments pointing out the ridiculousness of the 4-district map 1 and how it divided the various neighborhoods in 2 or 3 slices. But recognizing that we quickly coalesced behind the idea of district elections and even the map 5, and as those of you have been following, the idea of the 4-district direct elect mayor has been in place since day 1, but it really didn't get the airtime that the 5-district map did, primarily, I think, because all of the public comment was geared towards the 5-district map. But as we move closer to decision-making time, we had to deal with the 4-district map. And I do believe it was comments of Vice Mayor Rinn, similar to those that we heard tonight, which again, I agree with, that led me to just have this, light bulb moment of, well, let's put it to the public to decide, because clearly I said, I didn't think there was an appetite at the council level to adopt a 4-district direct elect mayor. But as I've said from the very beginning, I see the benefit that has nothing to do with my personal interest to having a direct elect mayor as the city moves to different types of governance, for all the reasons Vice Mayor Rinn expressed. And I can't say why, other than the handful of people that have shown up at meetings and have written letters and are part of the public record advocating for the 4-district direct elect mayor. It may be, as Councilmember Noack says, that they're just very comfortable with how this council and prior councils have run the city, how our city manager, our city staff have run the city, that they just trust that whatever decision is made, they're fine with it. So just focusing on where we are tonight, the proposed ordinance, the problem I see with the proposed ordinance is that there's no time to fill in the blanks of a 4-district map. As I take the advice of our city attorney that says that we need to have that map wrapped up by July 17, that's just not possible. And for that reason, I just don't think the ordinance as proposed should be adopted by council. I think we would need to just go to a 5-district map. So I think the only other comment that I heard and saw in writing and heard tonight was about including an independent commission for potential redistricting at the next cycle of the census. As I understand the CVRA, that process needs to occur anyway, the redistricting and review of it. And I will defer to the council that's in play 10 years from now to decide how to handle that issue. Just as Ms. Bernal said earlier that she was here in 10 years ago. None of us were here. None of us were here when she was last here with her daughter. Well, I can speak for myself. I won't be here 10 years from now. And I don't, well, maybe some of the council might be here if they are that dedicated. But that would be quite a lengthy term of service. So I would defer to the council in play at the time of the next redistricting, because it has to look at it anyway to decide how it thinks it should best deal with redistricting at that time. So those are my comments. So not putting words in anybody's mouth, but what I'm hearing is that at least a majority of the council would direct staff to remove the 4-district option from the ordinance.
Yes.
And bring it back to council for just an adoption of map 5 and the generic language about adoption of map 5 implementation. And do we need to discuss the rotation of districts? I know that the districts that Councilmember Shess and Noack would inherit, there's no election in 24, but the other three districts would be in play.
Would be up in 24. That's correct.
Okay.
And so, we need to, call a special meeting for July 10th.
So not to ruin everybody's weekend, but we do have a meeting on July 3rd, and I don't know if I canceled it already.
No,
Did
it's
I?
been
Did I
canceled.
already tell everybody? it was
Yeah, it's
canceled?
been canceled.
Good try, though.
All right,
July 10th.
fine. Well,
So there is no, further direction to explore any more 4-district maps.
I don't see that there's time to do that. You know, as I understand it, the council between now and whenever the deadline is could decide it wants to do a ballot measure. It's just not tied to the adoption here.
I'm
I don't
sorry.
think the issue's ever going to come up again.
I'm sorry. Repeat that.
If this council sometime between now and the end of the year decided it wanted to hold a special election in March to adopt a different map, could that be done?
I don't think so.
You have committed to, if you do
I
the
get you.
ordinance, the
I get-
way,
Well, then
You
the
would-
citizen initiative could do it if they want.
well, citizens
All right,
initiative,
fine.
but
That's
that's different.
Then the proponents of that could do it that way. So short answer, yes, no further discussion on a 4-district map. Again, I'm speaking for myself.
I agree.
Yeah, we,
Okay. I thought I heard.
Yep.
Okay, so do you want to have a meeting on the 10th?
It just needs to be 5 days before the 17th.
It
correct?
does.
I'm just pulling up the calendar.
That's a Monday. The 10th is a Monday.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
All right, so there's
So I
nothing,
see consensus for bringing back map 5 as fill in the blank on a 5-district map only on a special meeting on July 10th for introduction and then for adoption on July 17th.
correct.
Correct.
Got it. You have any question? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes the discussion on 10.4. As we adjourn, I just want to adjourn in the memory of John Stoner. John Stoner was a Pleasant Hill resident for 23 years. He served on our Commission on Aging, volunteered at the Pleasant Hill Library, was a driver for the Concord Senior Van Program, a parent volunteer for local soccer. And John worked for Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in data and archive management from 94 to 2017. John died unexpectedly and was a recent and really valued appointee to our Commission on Aging, or as some people call it, Commission on Aging Well. And so in his honor, we'll adjourn this meeting to our special meeting of July 10, 2023 at 7 p.m. Thank you all very much for your interest and comments tonight, and good night.